Boy, Tales of Childhood, written by Roald Dahl. St. Peter's, from 1925 to 1929, age 9 through 13. Here's St. Peter's uniform. Jack Hobbs in Cumberland Lodge in Landloft. Here's Duckworth Butterflies at my house in St. Peter's. He's somewhere in here in the front row. And here's Elsa, Alfred, and then Roald Dahl way at the top. This is in Landloft in 1927. First day. In September 1925, when I was just 9, I set out on the first great adventure of my life, boarding school. My mother had chosen for me a prep school in a part of England which was as near as it could possibly be to our home in South Wales, and it was called St. Peter's. The full postal address was St. Peter's School, Weston-super-Mare, Somerset. Weston-super-Mare is a slightly speedy seaside resort with a vast sandy beach, a tremendous long pier, and an epaulet running along the seafront, a clutter of hotels and boarding houses, and about 10,000 little shops selling buckets and spades and sticks of rocks and ice creams. It lies almost directly across the Bristol Channel from Cardiff, and on a clear day you can stand on the Esplane at Weston and look across the 15 or so miles of water and see the coast of Wales laying pale and milky on the horizon. In those days, the easiest way to travel from Cardiff to Weston-super-Mare was by boat. Those boats were beautiful. They were paddle steamers with gigantic swish paddle wheels on their flanks, and the wheels made the most terrific noise as they sloshed and churned through the water. On the first day of my first term, I set out by taxi in the afternoon with my mother to catch the paddle steamer from Cardiff docks to Weston-super-Mare. Every piece of clothing I wore was brand new and had my name on it. I wore black shoes, gray woolen stockings with blue turnovers, gray flannel shorts, a gray shirt, a red tie, a gray flannel blazer and with the blue school crest on the breast pocket, and a gray school cap with just the same crest just above the peak. Into the taxi that was taking us to the docks went my brand new trunk, my brand new tuck box, and both had R. Dahl painted on them in black. A tuck box is a small pinewood trunk which is very strongly made, and no boy has ever gone to a boarder to an English prep school without one. It is his own secret storehouse, as secret as a lady's handbag, and there is an unwritten law that no other boy, no teacher, not even the headmaster himself, has the right to pry into the contents of your tuck box. The owner has the key in his pocket, and that is where it stays. At St. Peter's, the tuck boxes were ranged shoulder to shoulder all around the four walls of the changing room, and your own tuck box stood directly below the peg on which you hung your game clothes. A tuck box, as the name implies, is a box in which you store your tuck. At prep school in those days, a parcel of tuck was sent once a week by anxious mothers to their ravenous little sons, and an average tuck box would probably contain, at almost any time, half a homemade currant cake, a packet of squashed fly biscuits, a couple of oranges, an apple, a banana, a pot of strawberry jam or marmalade, a bar of chocolates, a bag of licorice all sorts, and a tin of Bassett's lemon powder. An English school in these days were purely a money-making business, owned and operated by the headmaster. It suited him, therefore, to give the boys as little food as possible himself, and to encourage their parents in various cunning ways to feed their offspring by parcel post from home. By all means, my dear Mrs. Dahl, do send your boy some little treats now and again, he would say, perhaps a few oranges and apples once a week. Fruit was very expensive, and a nice currant cake, a large currant cake, perhaps, because small boys have large appetites, do they not? Ha, ha, ha. Yes, as often as you like, more than once a week if you wish. Of course, he'll be getting plenty of good food here, but the best there is, but it never tastes quite the same as home cooking, does it? I'm sure you wouldn't want him to be the only one who doesn't get a lovely parcel from home every week. As well as tuck, a tuck box would also contain all manner of treasures such as a magnet, a pocket knife, a compass, a ball of string, a clockwork racing car, half a dozen lead soldiers, a box of conjuring tricks, some tiddlywinks, a Mexican jumping bean, a catapult, some foreign stamps, a couple of stink bombs, and I remember one boy called Arca, who drilled an air hole in the lid of his truck box and kept a pet frog in there, which he fed on slugs. So off we set, my mother and I and my trunk and my tuck box, and we boarded the paddle steamer and went swooshing across the Bristol Channel in a shower of spray. I liked that part of it, but I began to grow apprehensive as I disembarked onto the pier at Weston-super-Mare and watched my trunk and tuck box being loaded into an English taxi which would drive us to St. Peter's. I had absolutely no idea what I was in store for. I had never spent a single night away from a large family before. St. Peter's was on a hill above a town. It was a long, 3-storied stone building that looked rather like a private lunatic asylum, and in front of it lay the playing fields, and their 3 football pitches. 1/3 of the building was reserved for the headmaster and his family. The rest of it housed the boys, about 150 of them altogether, if I remember rightly. As we got out of the taxi, I saw the whole driveway abustle with small boys and their parents and their trunks and their tuck boxes, and a man I took to be the headmaster was swimming around among them, shaking everybody by the hand. I have already told you that all headmasters are giants, and this one was no exception. He advanced upon my mother and shook her by the hand. Then he shook me by the hand, and as he did so he gave me the kind of flashing grin a shark might give to a small fish just before he gobbles it up. One of his front teeth, I noticed, was edged all the way around with gold, and his hair was slicked down with so much hair cream that it glistened like butter. "Right," he said to me. "Off you go, and report to the matron." And to my mother he said briskly, "Goodbye, Miss Dahl. I shouldn't linger if I were you. We'll look after him." My mother got the message. She kissed me on the cheek and said goodbye and climbed right back into the taxi. The headmaster moved away to another group, and I was left standing there beside my brand-new trunk and my brand-new tuck box. I began to cry.